morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. So first, I want to thank the grace of heaven, the virtue of the masters, compassion of our grand predecessor and our predecessors, and the transmitters, and all of you for giving me a chance to speak today. My name is Karen Du, and I was invited to share, my life, my Tao experience. And so it's supposed to be about me, but then I named this presentation Our Tao Journey because actually it's not just me, but my family and the people around me. And actually I hope that all of you can find similarities in what I'm sharing in your own life too. Okay, so hello. A few things about me. So we're going to start from here. I'm from New York. I was born and raised in New York. I am Taiwanese American. I have grown up in the temple. I've been in the temple for most of my life. I am a teacher. I am a vegetarian. And I was in Taiwan for the past 2 years under Fulbright. And so all of these things are key points in my life, and I will connect them as I talk. If you have any questions, just raise your hand. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is like shocking for some older members of the temple because we don't look like this anymore. All right, so this is my family, obviously. My mom and my dad, and I have 3 sisters. My parents are from Taiwan. If you don't know where that is, it's a small island off the coast of China. They came to America to get an education. And so when they came from Taiwan, they came with nothing but some money in their pocket and a small suitcase, and that's it. And they left every single one of their family members to come to a country whose language and culture and customs they had no idea about. They met in graduate school. My dad actually changed his major for my mom. Even though he was not interested in accounting, but that's what love does. And so they fell in love and they got married, and then they have these 4 kids. Yeah. All right.
So when was that picture?
Well, you know what? I don't know. We were so young. So these 2 are my middle sisters. They're twins. One is here. The other one already moved back to college. And this youngest one, this dumpling, is this one right here. She was really cute. And I am 5 years older than the middle and 7 years older than the youngest. So I was like it was an age gap. And I will talk about that later. All right. Okay. And I received the Tao before I can remember, so that means I must have been under 5 years old. And when I was in elementary school, my parents re-entered the temple and started to seriously cultivate Tao and learn. And at that time, my mom, who was a very strong-willed woman, she forced all of us to come to temple. And we started out like those kids out there, like we read and memorize the Chinese Buddhist scriptures, which to us at that time had no meaning whatsoever, and so I hated it. And I hated coming to temple for quite a long period of my life because I thought it was boring and I thought it was pointless. Right. And so around 8 years ago, my parents, they started to seriously involve themselves in the temple. They also began to change in many personal ways, and they thought it was a great thing. And then so they opened our house became a home temple. The name is 道化佛堂. That's the name that was given to our temple by God, and Transmitter Luo was the one who helped set it up in our home. I was also not happy about this at that time. So I was in maybe high school then. Yeah, I was like, oh great, like I don't like coming to temple, now it's in my house. All right. Okay. And actually, so when my parents, they got married and had a family, and they decided to start a accounting business on their own. And at that time, they borrowed a lot of money. That debt, the debt for that our family went through was only paid off very recently, so I want to say like 25 years later. And I actually remember going to their office after school, and I would sit on one of the chairs, and I would like read this gigantic Harry Potter book, and I would fall asleep with two of these chairs put together. And my parents would be next to me painting the walls by themselves of this new office. And so that's what my childhood was like, right? Like my parents were really hardworking, persevering, even though it was really difficult. They didn't have a lot of money. They didn't really know the language. They just had their education degrees, but they wanted to start this thing. And so, life wasn't easy. It wasn't smooth, but as a child, I actually didn't really know about my parents' debt. I didn't know about their struggles. I was an American, right? And so why would I know about their own struggles? And we grew up, and we were happy together, and we were a family. And our house always had laughter, always had warmth. There was food on our table and a roof over our heads, and that was what mattered. And so my mom became much more soft-tempered. She became much more happy, like a child. I would describe her now as like a child. And my dad became much more laid back and very easygoing after entering the temple. And throughout all those struggles, I think the Tao really helped them focus on what was important. So maybe work life and financial life was not great, but every time they went home, we were a happy family together. And throughout the whole process, they didn't give up, right? And so now my parents are still accountants, and their business is, I would say, flourishing, and our family is still happy together. Okay, that's my background. Okay, so that's us more recently. My parents also went through very serious troubles in their marriage, I would say, but because they grew together and learned together, became leaders in the temple, they're still happy together now. And we grew up, we're all in college, we're all going to college, and we're crazy and we're weird. That's a rubber chicken. All right. Okay. All right, and me. All right, I went off to college, and I got into the college of my dreams, which was Vanderbilt University, if anyone's ever heard of it. It's a very good school. In Tennessee, yes. It's a very good school. It had the program I wanted. It had a beautiful campus. I grew up in the city. I didn't want to go to a city school. I wanted to go to like grass and sun. But the problem was that going there would have cut my parents back over $200,000 in tuition because it's a private school. And so while I hated to admit it at the time, but I hated going to the temple. I kept saying I hated going to the temple, but actually I realized around this age that the temple values and the Tao principles were already ingrained in me. And so I got into a dream school, but because of filial piety, what I've learned since I was really little, like loving and respecting your parents, I ultimately chose to go to Hundred College, which is a public school in New York City, which is where I didn't want to go, but I ended up there anyway. And it didn't have the campus I wanted. Ranking-wise, it was a lot lower. But guess what? I had the time of my life going to college there. I met amazing people, friends I'm still friends with. She recently got married. And I think the takeaway point is, oh God, I forgot what I was going to say. Give me a second. Okay, right. And so the takeaway point is, I did the majority of my learning, and it wasn't really in like the curriculum of the school, right? It was through all the diverse people I met in New York City because I went to a New York City school. So I was just telling lecturer Jean this, but actually I was really, really shy growing up. Like my teachers would always complain to my parents during parent-teacher conference, like she never talks. She never answers the questions we give her. But then it was in college that I really grew to be the person I am right now. And I would say because I grew up in the temple, I wasn't really interested in, typical college culture, which is like heavy partying, drinking, sleeping around, trying drugs. Like, I wasn't really interested in that. I did try new things in college, but ultimately I stuck on the path that, made me not make many mistakes I would regret. And so that's something I'm really grateful for. In my 4 years of college, I grew to be this person I am, which I like, and I grew to be more passionate about being a teacher because that was my major, and I made some really wonderful friends who have the same values as me, right? And so that was really important to me. And I took the vegetarian vow when I was 20. That was a highlight of my life. I was like, I'm going to give myself a birthday gift, and I made the vow, which doesn't sound like a birthday gift, but actually it was important. And lastly, when I went off to college and I started to realize like the value of the Tao principles, my relationship with my sisters changed. So this is my youngest sister. She's right there. Her name is Cindy. We had a really terrible relationship growing up. Like, we were good sisters, we were a good family, but I think because our age gap was so big, we would often fight, and we are both very stubborn. And the fight would be really terrible, and then like our relationship soured actually as I grew up. But then in college, I began to think like, family is so important, and I'm the old sister. I should initiate like the mending of our relationship. So, one day I actually called her over and I sat her down and I said, we need to have this formal discussion about our relationship. And so I apologized for a lot of things. And then I also grabbed my twin sisters and we, had a talk. And I would say, because all four of us, we were in the temple, we understood the value of like forgiveness, of letting go of your anger and being patient with the people around you. And so now our relationship right now is really great, the four of us. Right? Okay. That was non-threatening. All right. Okay, now to more recent times. For the past 2 years, I was in Taiwan, right here, it's minuscule, under Fulbright. That is a U.S. government program for international education. So I applied and I got in and I chose Taiwan because I wanted to work on my Chinese and I wanted to see the education system of another country because I know America as well, right? The first year I was in the mountains of Taiwan, very rural, very small. That was a challenge, growing up in New York City. And I worked with elementary school students from Aboriginal tribes. So that was also really interesting because I'm Taiwanese, but I'm Han Chinese, right? I don't know their culture. Technically we colonized them, which is very terrible. And so it was really interesting to learn from their culture. I taught English, obviously. And my second year, I was in Taipei, which is the capital of Taiwan, big city, so much like New York City. And I worked with junior high school students, so middle school students. I also taught them English. And that's us, being really happy together. And I just got back from that experience. Okay, any questions so far? Yes?
Was Taipei clean or was it dirty like
I'm sad to say it was cleaner than New York. I think, so I'm 25 years old. As a 25-year-old, my standard of living in Taipei was much higher in Taipei than in New York. I think because New York, older city, a little less safe, and the financial struggles are maybe more, like New York is so expensive, Yeah. Okay. No more questions? All right. Moving on. So what I learned from these 2 years and how it relates to what we learned in Temple, or what I learned in Temple at least. Oh, sorry, I forgot this slide. So when I was in Fulbright, I met a lot of amazing people. I traveled the world, and I learned, a lot of great things that I couldn't have learned in school. A few, huh?
Where is the elephant? In Taiwan?
Oh, this is Thailand.
Oh, Thailand.
Yeah, it's an elephant sanctuary. Really recommend going. And their vegetarian food is so good in Thailand. Some of these friends I actually took to receive the Tao, so that was cool. All right. Okay. The first thing I learned is the value of an international community. So I was born and raised in New York. I even went to school in New York. I never lived outside of New York ever. And so when I went to Taiwan, I realized it's really important to, if you don't, you don't have to go travel to see the world, but, read the news, watch the TV sometimes, right? Care about what's happening around you. Because, I was teaching my students in Taiwan all about American culture, right? And American culture is not just Halloween and Christmas. And Americans are not only just white, right? And so that was very surprising to them. Like some of them had never seen like a person that looked like them who was also American. And so, the Buddhas always say, like, cultivating Tao is not you go to the mountains and you live in the mountains by yourself and you become a monk and you drink tea and you read sutra all day, right? Like right now, in 2018, like, cultivating Tao is trying to go out there and understand the world, understand all the people, all the different people around you. And so I was teaching my kids, like, diversity, right? Understanding, tolerance, right? Serious issues like racism, right? Those are very alive in our world today. And so my understanding of Tao is not just, being in the temple all day and not really making new friends or talking to people about it, but it's really about going outside and understanding, that there's other people different from you, but then they can also understand the Tao principles that you believe in, right? And so I'm really glad that I have like an international view of the world now. I feel like I can relate to more people who are different than me. Okay, next thing is the value of personal relationships. So, like I said, I met amazing people who I learned so much from, and I managed to successfully bring many of them to receive the Tao, and I didn't have to really like force it on them or be like, hey, come, like every week. I think I had just brought it up once and said, are you interested in this, or in the Tao, right? It has to do with Chinese culture, and it has to do with who I am. And so, because I had like made these really amazing relationships with them, and they trusted me, and they believed that I was also a good person, they were like, sure, why not, right? Like, you're pretty cool, and so why don't I come and learn about, the things that make you who you are. And that's, I think, the key for me is before you can talk to other people about being a better person, you have to be that person yourself. And so being a role model, like showing yourself, is not all about just like talking to people about it, but if you show it, right? If you put trust and faith and loyalty in your relationships, people will gravitate towards you, good people. And that's something I learned too. Okay. Third thing is family. I was away from my family for the first time in a long time, for a long time. And when I was in Taiwan, I was like, oh, darn it, I actually miss my parents. Oh, my sisters are actually nice. Like, distance makes the heart grow fonder, is that expression? And I vowed that when I came back to America, I would spend more time with my family. I wouldn't argue with my mom. If she wants me to do something, if she wants me to cook, I'll do it, because I got to experience what it felt like to not have those things, to not have a sister and a mom and a dad. And then I also reconnected with family in Taiwan, which is important to me. I didn't really know them well. But yeah, I think having a harmonious family, letting go of all those grudges you have or the things that you don't like about this person, really the happy atmosphere is so worth everything that you're doing. So just let go of that. Yeah. Okay. Fourth thing is persisting under challenges. I worked in schools where I didn't really understand the language very well, and Taiwanese culture and work culture is so different than American culture. And I was solo teaching without really a lot of support, and so it was really hard at times. I think I was depressed for 5 months last year because I just couldn't handle the stress, and I didn't have my family around me, and so that was difficult, but I worked through it. Again, I think this has everything to do with me growing up in the temple, seeing other people around me, my own parents, grow through challenges. And I was okay, I can't give up. I have to keep doing this. I'm young. I have the spirit. I have to keep doing this. And so I persisted. I persevered. I gave myself some time off as well. And everything worked out in the end, right? I really like this quote. It seems the harder I work, the more luck I have. Actually, it's not luck. I mean, some of it is luck, but also, the Buddha's, God is watching over you, right? When they see you doing good things, good things will come your way. I really believe in karma, right? Good things happen to good people. Okay. Next. I think last thing. Cultivating Tao in America. Okay, so this was a trip that we took, just last month. It was for the Tianshi Ban, for the Angels class. while I was in Taiwan, I went to the temple in Taiwan, and let me tell you, it is a different story there. Their temple has so many people, and the key point for me is that so many young people, right? There are not a lot of young people in the temples in America because I think cultural differences. But being part of that community in Taiwan was like, wow, this feels really great. It feels really great to have a lot of people around me who believe the same things that I do. But I also realized on the flip side, like, it's really easy to cultivate Tao in Taiwan because everyone around you is the same way, right? Meanwhile, in America, we are like, it's a struggle. You know, I'm sure people understand, especially like the older senior members here, it's a struggle to cultivate Tao. It's a struggle to talk to people about the Tao. It's a struggle to even have people like understand why you even believe in this. But I think that it's really valuable because it tests your faith, right? It tests your resolve. And so I found that I was very proactive and very like active in the Taiwan temple trying to help out. While some of the younger people in the temples there were like very like meh, like, oh, I come, but I don't really like care so much about it, you know, because they don't really have to, I guess. And so this really taught me, one, the value of community, and second, the value of being tested and challenged. And it's harder in America, but I would say we should not give up. It's just testing our faith. The Buddha say they always give us tests and challenges, and that's the most important part of our cultivation. If we weren't tested, how would we really truly believe in it, right? Okay. Any questions? No? Okay. I have a little time left, so I wanted to show everyone some things that I was teaching my children in Taiwan that has to do with topics in the temple, or rather, very fundamental values. So we'll skip that. All right. So my students in Taipei, they're pretty privileged. They just bike or take the subway every day to school, and so I was like, all right, we're learning transportation, right? They're learning bus, car, train, bike, those words, those vocabulary words. I said, let's take a look at students from different parts of the world. And so, you know, I was like, guess these countries, you know, Myanmar, Colombia, Indonesia, Philippines, China, Himalayan Mountains, India. Okay. I said, this is students in China. They have to walk to school for 5 hours. Some of them take a donkey, right? These students have to climb these ladders in southern China to go to school. They get to school on foot. These students, they have to cross the icy lake to get to school, right? And then at this point, my students are like, oh my God, why do they even go to school? This is so troublesome. And I said, well, you know, they value school because they can't have it very easily, you know? Yes, and I was like, oh, they're like, what's wrong with this bridge? I was like, it's broken, obviously, but they're still going to school on it. And so, you know, showing them that they're actually very privileged. And so really, your life really depends on the perspective you look at it. And that's something that the temple taught me. It's all about perspective. Another thing, I want to lead everyone in an activity. Okay. I want everyone to take this piece of paper, and then I want you to be angry at it. I want you to crumple it up. Okay? I don't know if we have enough. It's okay. You want to like share one? Here. 2 people, 1 paper. Here. There you go. Here you go. All right. I want you to take your anger on this piece of paper. I want you to make it as crumpled as you can. Like, my kids took a lot of enjoyment in this. They were like standing up and stepping on it and throwing. I was like, okay. Like
a lot of anger.
Yes, they were very happy to do this thing. Okay. Now, I want you to open it up. And then I want you to make it the same way it was again.
We need an iron.
And so now my students would like take it and like rub it on the table, like sit on it. So I gave them a few minutes to do that. You have to try to make it the exact original, not one single wrinkle on this paper. Not one single wrinkle. Alright, it's hard to trick adults, but kids actually try, okay? Okay, fine, it's not working. It's not working. My students are struggling, and I say, I have a trick. I want you to say sorry to it and then do it. Go on, say, I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't mean it. Okay, now try again.
It still don't work.
Doesn't work. Yes, my students do that. They'll just take a new piece of paper. I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
Ah, your teacher's not stupid. Okay. All right. So, can you?
No.
No.
Not possible.
Okay. And so that was my lead-in for a bullying unit. A bullying unit, right? And I taught them, I told them, right? Like, the words that we say, it's just like this piece of paper, right? We say things when we're really angry, when we're really impatient, when we are, when we want to complain about something, especially to the people closest to us, because that's easiest. So, for example, my sisters, right? But, is it possible to take back your words to make them forget it completely? No. You can even say, I'm sorry, you can beg on the floor, but this paper won't become the same it was again. And my students got a lot out of that. They were like, wow, you're right, like this paper, right? And so that's another thing that I picked up from Temple, right? We have to be really careful about the words that we say and the actions that we take, because once we do it, you can't take it back. Right? That person, you don't get to choose if you hurt that person. That person chooses. If they're hurt, they're hurt. And you can't do anything about it. And so, yeah, I picked up that from the Temple, and I taught it to my kids for bullying. Should we do this? Do we have time? Do you want to hear about this?
Yeah, you have time. You have 15 minutes.
This is just teaching acceptance in my classroom. So teaching diversity and that there's all types of people. So we played this game. It's Who is American? And I showed them Obama and Theresa May. And it's crazy because they know Obama is the president of America, but they still think Theresa May is American, and he's not American. So the answer is Obama. And the reason they think it's not Obama is because he's not white, right? So I was like, that's very wrong. You have to be American to even be the president. And then she's from the UK. Which politician is American? I was like, they're both white, now what, right? And so they're just taking random guesses. It's obviously Hillary Clinton. She's from Germany. Which tennis player is American? Again, they will choose Maria Sharapova. She's Russian. This one really got them. They all think he's Taiwanese. Because he is Taiwanese. And so we have this conversation about what it means to be part of another country, right? But actually, he's American. He's Canadian. And so we go through, there's so many types of people in America. We have Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, African Americans, Jewish Americans, Muslim Americans, Asian Americans. I say I'm one, Jeremy Lin is one. And so through this unit, I was hoping they would become more accepting of differences and know that, you don't have to be a certain ethnicity, or you don't have to speak a certain language or look a certain way to be an identity. Yeah. So again, teaching acceptance. Yeah, so those are just some sample things that I did with my students. Diversity, bullying, showing them like transportation in other countries. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Well.
Are you the dog?
No! Oh, actually, maybe. No, my mom would get angry. She'd be like, "You're not a dog." So, like, if you're a dog,
like
you'd be
your dog.
doomed.
It looks like your dog.
Oh yeah, I just look a little bit like my dog. Yeah. And so I am continuing to learn. Obviously, I'm still in the temple, so I believe in the good that it has done for me and my family. I just came back from Taiwan, and so I am teaching in Queens for 1 year and then trying to go to graduate school for next year. And I'm trying to also spearhead the children's program out there. Yeah, so those are my goals. I hope you also find the value of Tao in your life and your family. We all have our own stories of faith. Yeah. Okay, so forgive me if I made any mistakes or spoke anything offensive or wrong. I ask the Buddhas and the saints and the Buddhists to forgive me. If you have anything to say or any questions to ask, now is the time. All right.